2025. Good to have you with us today, listeners, as I'm out of studio. I'm in the 15th parish. I'm in Portmore for the official launch of the World Skills Day. So I'm here at the Hart College of Construction Service in Portmore. I don't think the law which was passed making Portmore into a parish has yet been brought into operation, or the appointed day is not yet communicated. But this is always an interesting drive over here. I always feel like I don't know where I'm going when I do get on the road that's to take me to Portmore. It really does feel like an entirely different area, and beautifully so, actually. Scenic, depending on the route that you take as well. One more scenic than the other. But we thank you so much for joining us. We know that you have choices. We're happy when you come here. Happier when you find reasons to stay. This is the hotline.
Emily's views, her position on the issues, her point of view backed up by the facts. Here are Emily's views.
Well, what is happening in the office of the Governor General? Yesterday we had published or seen copies of the letters which have been sent concerning the holding of the general election for the 3rd of September 2025. The proclamation by the Governor General with the official seal and all that is to accompany the seal. But then in the letter to the clerk to the Houses of Parliament, I write to inform you that His Excellency the Governor General has, on the advice of the Prime Minister, issued proclamations dissolving Parliament effective tomorrow, Friday the 15th of August, and fixing Thursday, the 3rd September 2025 as the day for the taking of the poll. The proclamations have been published in an issue of the Jamaica Extraordinary, the Gazette, bearing the 11th of August 2025. I don't understand how is it that they got the date correctly, but they misstated the day, because we don't have any Thursday 3rd September in 2025. And in fact, in the proclamation itself, the wrong day is stated. It is stated as Thursday the 3rd September 2025. I suspect that perhaps a clerical error of this sort can and should be easily amended, changed. But I just don't understand how exactly it was made in the first place. Because the proclamation is so short and so simple that it's just hard to understand how it happened. Didn't it go through one or two eyes? One set, really? One pair, two pairs of eyes for vetting? Yesterday I mentioned on this program, sort of in passing, quite a bit of sloppiness that I see in so many of us, myself included, where even when we are doing whatever submissions, letters being drafted now, especially because people seem to be relying a lot on AI. And when I'm speaking about AI now, I'm not speaking specifically to the issue concerning the proclamation. But there is this style where we are making every first letter in a word in the heading of something. We're making the first letter a capital letter, even when the thing is not a capital noun, a proper noun. We're heading it up with a capital letter because this style is being picked up from these AI things and people are not vetting them. And if we're not careful, the sort of meticulous attention to detail that we're supposed to have engaged in as much of our lives as possible, we're going to lose out on it. Yeah, I'd love to understand from the Governor General's office how this sort of error came in the proclamation and the letter concerning the election day, because they got the date right, but the day is not correct. I think I'm up on the break. This is the hotline. Get the chance to speak and to explore it a little bit more. But all right, I'm seeing something from one of my colleagues online where they say King's House claimed that the correct thing was sent out. Oh, so that bit of information that was communicated to us, they perhaps caught it before it was sent out and corrected it and sent the correct thing out. All right, let us see. The front page of the Gleaner this morning, I heard Kingston's mayor raising some concern about this. The announcement of the Prime Minister on the night of the 10th of August, when he announced the election date, he also announced by-election in some local government divisions. And one of the divisions in which he announced a by-election is for the Severight Gardens division. That division is held by Delroy Williams, deputy mayor in the KSAMC, former mayor of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. As most of you should know by now, Delroy Williams is among the 63 candidates for the Jamaica Labour Party. He's headed to Clarendon Central for this September 3 election. The concern that I heard Mayor Andrew Swaby raising immediately after the Prime Minister's announcement of the by-election is that he is going to seek legal advice from his attorneys concerning whether there has been an activation of the by-election in Severight Gardens because he'd not yet received a resignation letter from Councillor Delroy Williams for that division. The Gleaner is saying this morning that it has seen a resignation letter dated the 8th of August. As to if and when the KSAMC received the letter from Delroy Williams, if there was enough time for the appropriate notification to be given such that a by-election is really supposed to be in train for that division, that is where the grey area seems to be. But on the front page of the Gleaner this morning, The attorneys for the mayor of Kingston say they've written to the director of elections, Glasspool Brown, telling him to halt making any arrangements for the by-election in the Severight Gardens until he consults with their client. I don't even know what that means. The bottom line is that there are some issues surrounding Severight, and if we do have the chance, if not in this program, then tomorrow on the hotline we can explore further to better see how things are going to pan out in that division. Will the people in the division actually be voting on the 3rd of September, not only for their MP, but also for the councillor for the division, or will the local government by-election, will it be held at all in that division? This is very important, so we'll make sure that we follow up with it. The other thing as well is when I spoke to Paula this morning on Help Me Understand This Just a Little Bit More, I indicated that the election day workers and the members of the security forces, they vote the day before the election. I want to correct that. It's not the day before, it is actually 3 days before the election. And I think that is represented in Section 9 of the Representation of the People Act. Yeah, it says subject to Rule 10, 3 days before election day, every military electoral officer for a voting center between the hours of 8 and 4 p.m., those names who appear, the names that appear on the list for the particular center, they are supposed to vote. Okay? So because the election is scheduled for a Wednesday, 3 days before would fall on this Sunday, but the Sunday isn't counted. It can't happen on the Sunday. So we jump to the working day before that, and that is going to be Friday. I believe it's Friday the 29th of August. But you will have notification, I'm sure, in the media about exactly when election day workers and members of the security forces are supposed to vote. So keep plugged in for that. Don't turn up at the center based on the comment you heard me give earlier on, because you'd have missed it by 2 days. Okay? So please be plugged in that you're likely to be voting on the 29th of August. Election day workers as well as members of the security forces. Okay? Right, so in listening again to part of the presentations from the People's National Party as it unveiled its manifesto a couple nights ago, we had a presentation from the opposition spokesperson on education, Damian Crawford. And I listened quite a lot to the presentations in the Senate, and of course always cerebrally provoking the presentations from Damian Crawford. So a lot of what he said at the launch, they're not entirely surprising to me, but I want to have you listen to what he says about what the PNP intends to do for school children, and also you will hear from Dana Morris Dixon, the Minister of Education now, on what is actually happening in terms of school feeding program for the children. Yeah, because what I find that's happening, a lot of things that are being presented as new, they're really not new. There is so much that has been happening, and some of the proposals of the opposition now in its manifesto, they're indicating to me, perhaps more than anything else, a desire to build on as opposed to introduce something new. And sometimes when I listen to the conversations, I don't get the impression that there's an appreciation of what is exactly happening now versus what is being proposed as new. So let's hear what Damian Crawford said the PNP intends to do concerning education.
A return to 22% absenteeism, quote unquote, pre-COVID levels. Chronic absenteeism is suggested to be 10%. So we are celebrating twice what is suggested to be the chronic absenteeism levels. And this is for the general reality. Deep rural absenteeism has been said to be 55% and rural absenteeism 32%. To this extent, we have recognized some of the reasons for absenteeism to include access to transportation. And it's important to differentiate access and affordability because there are some communities being deep rural that have no access for them to even consider affordability. To that extent, we had indicated the RIDE program. And the RIDE program is to give $10,000 per month or $2,500 per week as a supplement to individuals who are coming from communities that may, one, not have access to make access more available, but two, may not be able to afford to ensure that they can afford getting to school. Regardless of the quality of school and teacher, absence would indicate that the child will not be able to perform satisfactorily. We also recognize nutrition to be a problem. And in recognizing that nutrition is a problem, we relied upon the research that said 56% of Jamaicans have food insecurity. Some graver than others, but 56%. Our current PATH program lunch is targeting less than 30% of our children, indicating that approximately 26% are still not accessing the necessary nutrition that is needed. To this extent, we not only decided to expand the number of students to over 240,000 students, but also to increase the amount from $180 to $400 per child per day. The current $180 have caused for an apartheid system in education where many children on PATH have to join a separate line of segregation and divided from persons who are affording other lunches. Principals have also started to offer 3 days of lunch because the money allotted cannot provide for the entire 5 days. Time come for that to change under the People's National Party. We will ensure that the stories of literacy problems in high school are a thing of the past by focusing on literacy and numeracy in the first 4 years, indicating that by the grade 6, all our children should be literate and numerate with the necessary interventions to correct the necessary things for those children.
All right, that's Damian Crawford speaking to nutrition and access to transport. In the access to transport, he speaks of the $10,000 per month for rural children. When the press conference was held concerning the rural school bus system, there was a presentation from Mr. Troop in the Ministry of Education. And Mr. Troop outlined to Jamaica that from 2016, there was a system where the Ministry of Education engaged through the various schools with local transport operators in various communities. They engaged the transport operators and they paid the transport operators to transport children in deep rural to school, and the operators were then paid by the schools through the Ministry of Education. I believe I heard an interview on Beyond the Headlines yesterday with a representative from the PNP who confirmed that that is actually happening at the moment. So what is being proposed is a bit of expansion in terms of the quantum that is to be given per child per day as opposed to something that is new. But here's how Dana Morris Dixon, the education minister, spoke to what is now being done for school feeding of children who they've realized go to school hungry. Let's see if we have Dana Morris Dixon now.
We are targeting the schools that have the least good performances in CXC and otherwise. So we're targeting them. And we found 56 high schools that fit that bill and 189 primary schools. So we've identified the schools that need the intervention. And what are we doing? We are providing targeted support to those children. So some of you may have seen maths camps over the Christmas or over the Easter, and I know in this constituency many children participated. That's because we say we're not leaving those children behind. They are as important as everybody else. We're also extending the school day at those schools because we understand that children need to be at school for a longer time, especially if they need to catch up.
Let's go to the break. On the hotline, we're going to come to base here in just a moment with interview from location, but I want us to complete hearing what Dana Morris Dixon said about what is being done in education in terms of the feeding, how many children are being fed. They say they identified some least performing schools, 56 high schools, 189 primary schools. For targeted intervention, they've been having mass camps. They've extended the school days for those schools so they can get the intervention that's necessary. Let's go to Dana Morris Dixon, the Minister of Education.
These are the schools that are not performing. And the thing I'm most proud of, and that our Prime Minister has led on and directed, is that for those schools, remember I told you about the schools with the underperforming children, all of those schools, every child is going to get breakfast. Every single child in those underperforming schools, every single morning of the week is going to be given breakfast. And they're going to be given lunch. So they're going to get breakfast and they're going to get lunch. Why? Because we understand that a lot of our children who are in these underperforming schools or who don't get the results that we want, they are from families that need our support even more. And so we have to give them the food and the nutrition that they need. They're not going to be able to learn when they're hungry. And so we as a government, we're putting $1 billion $1 billion just for breakfast for those children in those schools, because we believe no child should be missing from school because they cannot afford to buy lunch. That's what we believe. And we don't just believe it, we put it in practice. So we find the $1 billion, and it's not easy to find.
That's Dana Morris Dixon speaking. This was, I believe, in June of this year. What we will do over the course of the next couple of weeks is pull out some of what has been said, what has been promised, what the government has said it is doing or will do, and the money that they say is to be allocated so we can better understand differences, if there are any differences, between one side and the next. Yeah? All right. I'm going to just remind you that we are now at the Hart College of Construction Service in Portmore.